Welcome, everybody. This is Thomas Trimmingham. I'm the Director of Marketing for M&R Companies, and this is another episode of We Are M&R. And today I've got the great fortune to talk to Mei Yang from Flash Flood Print Studios. Hopefully I got that correct. And
Yes.
Kristen, I believe. So why don't you guys go ahead, just briefly introduce yourselves, and if you want, Mei, you want to talk about how you got started in the business.
Sure. I'm May. I'm one of the co-owners here at Flash Flood, and this is Krista.
Hi, I'm Krista. I am the production manager for Flash Flood Print Studios.
Flash Flood actually got started in 2012. Nick, the other co-owner, and I have been working in other screen printing shops and had talked a lot about starting our own shop. And I think we had just had a moment in our both of our lives where it made sense for us to make that happen. And we looked around for used equipment and kind of bought stuff and worked out of a garage and learned everything else as we went. And it's been a little over 8 years now, and here we are still. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And now you're one of the maybe the few people that I've seen, and correct me if I get any of this wrong, but you actually went to school for printmaking, and maybe
I went to school and got a design degree, but also took like a wealth of printmaking classes while I was there. It was a really great break for me to kind of separate from the very digital world of graphic design. I've always been interested in printmaking. My main start in screen printing was actually when I was a teenager. I bought one of those speedball kits from like
hmm
Michael and tried to teach myself as a 16-year-old and like ruined my, my bathroom and like my parents were super mad at me, but that really got me started down this entire path. So it wasn't until college where I was like properly trained how to screen print. And then upon graduating, I actually thought I was going to be a different type of printer. I really was interested in lithography, which is another older print process, and went to a program called the Tamarind Institute of Lithography, and they actually train people to become collaborative printers. So you
mm
work with fine artists on producing editions of their work. It was a really great experience, but I think at the end of the day, my love for screen printing kind of outweighed my love for lithography, and
mhm.
went full circle and kind of came back to screen printing.
Yeah, that's a really cool story, man. It's funny when I first started coming out of college myself, I stumbled into it just because it was accessible and it's quick, and people love it so much. You get such an immediate reaction from something,
Mm-hmm.
a garment that people can wear, and I think it's accessible for the, you hate to say categorize people, but say the ordinary person that maybe isn't as art, affiliated with artwork or isn't an art collector. They can get screen printing as far as from the art side of it in an immediate way that maybe somebody needs a little bit more, that doesn't visit galleries on a regular basis or that sort of thing, and I've always felt an affinity to that. So it's really cool. I would say that you're probably one of the more accomplished printmakers that I've talked to, like as far as actually producing flat work, on a regular basis in your shop. And I saw some of the prints that you guys do and are fantastic work. I mean, it's beautiful stuff. So is that something that right out of
I,
the gate? I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say it's one of my major like passion projects in the studio environment. And while we do print the majority of our work as apparel, I've always loved fine art printing and gig posters, and it's a world that I always wanted to make sure was included in our business.
Yeah, it makes you better in every way, I think, in screen printing because you see, obviously, when you're dealing with a non-absorbent or less absorbent, media, there's a lot of other variables, it kind of shifts gears. But that was something out of the gate that you knew you wanted to do then? Was print both, like print a lot of flat stock and posters and then
Yeah,
also shirts?
I think in my mind, I had always seen room for both flat stock and apparel within our shop, specifically getting our local community to kind of understand the difference between a screen printed gig poster versus something that's just offset or digitally printed has been another challenge. And I think we've
Mhm.
kind of reached a point where we have a little bit more notoriety in that we do this and we offer this service, and people are beginning to understand and appreciate that art form a little more.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And it's pretty rare. Like we don't have there aren't other shops in town, at least not many other shops in town that also offer flat stock printing.
Hmm.
So people really do know that we offer that and that's something a service that they love from us.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think it's coming back to some degree. Like I think the popularity waned for a while, maybe it was a decade or so ago with the advent of easily accessible digital printing in different formats. People were sticking with the digitally printed reproductions a lot more, but there's a I would say a greatly renewed interest in hand produced printed items that are either printed, you know what I'm saying? Like there's
Yeah.
just a certain appeal to that, and people love to put that stuff up on their wall. And I was just funny. I was down at ShirtCon. I don't know if you're familiar with those guys, but Andy Rudman and his wife does a lot of that types of printing as well, and she's pretty accomplished. And she had her little she had her like art studio in the basement and stuff, and we were going through stuff, and I was like, wow, it's just seeing the energy behind that is exciting. It's different than just putting the, not to disparage, somebody that pushes a button on a printer, but it's a different thing, right? I mean, there's a PLC to it, right? That's pretty cool. So, do you guys have it divided in your production? Like, is it pretty definitive? Like, like if something comes in as a gig poster, it's treated a certain way, and that kind of goes this direction versus T-shirts going a different direction. Is that how you have it, or is it kind of all in the same bucket?
Given the way that our space is laid out, I think there's always going to be some level of overlap
Mhm.
in,
Yeah.
the creation of the screens and kind of the background, like the pre-press that happens before it gets onto the press. But we
Yeah.
do tend to have we have different inks obviously for flat top versus apparel, and we have different processes and procedures that we kind of go through while we're working on artwork. So there is also that level of separation.
Yeah. I would also say that um, maybe the mindset behind it is a little bit different as well, just in
Mhm.
terms of the amount of collaboration that is required from
Mhm.
it. Um, the printing flat stock tends to be not always, but it does tend to be a little bit more of a collaborative process with the artist or the designer itself, because they've
Sure.
made this thing that's like, they've got a very firm idea in their mind of what it's going to look like. And
Yeah.
not to say that like apparel is any different, but brands and logos, there tends to be a little bit, it's this one thing. And with flat stock, that process is a little bit different.
And
Yeah.
some of the artwork that we get is also somebody's very personal artwork. Like they put a lot of time and energy into that. And there is a way that we handle it that feels a little bit different, not to, again, disparage
Right.
the apparel side, but
Sure. Yeah.
the artwork feels different when it's a little bit more personal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, uh, yeah, I'm really into it. I don't want to go in too much the weeds and get away from you guys, but it's really cool to talk shop a little bit because I still dabble occasionally myself, but when time permits, obviously. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on, I'm obviously, with you guys in masks, together, and you might be the first interview I've done. I want to put my own mask on, but I respect that, and we should touch on just briefly what it's been like for you guys. I mean, I know. Um, I've read a little bit about how you've talked about how you've worked through this kind of last year, and everybody's kind of like, thank goodness that year is gone, but unfortunately, it's still kind
Right.
of drags on, right? It's like the year that'll never end. But maybe just speak to that briefly. Is that the greatest challenge you've had to face, or is there other ones that come to mind that have been
It's
equally
certainly,
hard?
because the pandemic has presented so many challenges that are completely out of our control. Yeah, I would easily categorize that as the biggest challenge. I mean,
Mhm.
we were shut down for all of April, like we weren't working. So that was a huge change to go from April, which would have been a huge month for us, to not doing anything.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And what's the following process for that? I mean, I saw, and maybe if you don't mind, like tie in some of the initiatives that you've done because I've really been impressed with some of the stuff that you've done to help your local community. If you don't mind touching on that, I mean, might be old news now, but if you just want to touch on it briefly, that'd be great.
I know in the middle of all of that, when we were all at home and struggling to make everything work, I know you're feeling really restless and wanting to connect more with our community. And Krista actually started the first initiative that we took, which was designing and creating masks that we were selling on our website. Krista is also a textile artist, so she had a lot of hand-dyed fabric, and we, as a team, made, assembled, and sold all of these masks, and it was a buy one, give one effort. And I think we ended up donating around 200 masks to the local community.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great to have something to work on from home that still was like keeping me busy, keeping my hands and my mind busy, but then also was like a very immediate need.
Sure.
So it felt like it was a really nice way to utilize that time when we were at home. And then to see the response from the community, everybody was so excited. And like walking around town, going to the grocery store now, you know, still seeing those masks out and about.
Yeah.
It was a pretty rewarding thing to kick off that that horrible time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, hopefully we're going to see a light at the end of the tunnel here in the next couple of months, or, everybody's kind of got their fingers crossed. How has it been? How was the end of the year for you then? Like, how did things kind of end up as the end of the year?
I think we ended up doing about the same that we would have normally done in a given year. We were very lucky in that we had a few opportunities and collaborations that came up within this last year that really helped us through what could have been a difficult summer for us. So I would say that is a little atypical, but we're just lucky to still be here and still be like working and doing everything. Like I can't stress enough that we couldn't have done this also without the support of our community.
Exactly.
One of the initiatives that we did run was a series of fundraisers for small businesses, artists, and musicians in our city. We called it the Rising Tide fundraiser. It was a fundraiser where people could submit their business and we would help them with their design and put it on a t-shirt. They got a certain cut of that t-shirt sale, and it was a way for people to support both our small shop to make sure we still stayed open, but then also all of the other small businesses within Tulsa.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're okay. The community was really excited about it. We saw a really amazing response from it, and we announced the fundraiser and released the first wave of it, and then we continued to have other businesses and individuals that were really interested in it and wanted to participate if possible. So we ended up doing 3 waves of it during that first iteration, and just being able to help so many businesses and individuals in a way that like everybody that was supporting it was so excited about it.
Yeah, and you'd be amazing. I've heard a lot of stories, that some of the fundraisers similar to what you guys did, but just, obviously you didn't have to do that, and you did it, and even a small amount of income can keep, it's like 1 or 2 heartbeats can keep a business alive, and it's amazing the difference. And sometimes it's even just the hope of seeing activity going that'll keep somebody going when they wouldn't have, So hats off to you guys. I mean, that's awesome, and whatever we can do to help our small businesses, because they've, still are impacted by this, and anybody that's taking part in a small business, they realize how critical it is to just keep that connection with the customers and the other businesses. And in a sense, that's one of the tougher things I have seen. It makes a difference if you're more online to a degree, I think, and because that can help you connect with other people. Has that been your story as well? Did you always do things online, or was that fairly recent that you ramped it up?
I would say that the pandemic was the deciding factor for us to run that sort of pre-sale store. We've always had an online presence, but most of our, online presence is social media, and we're still taking like direct orders through email. Like we don't have like an e-commerce version of, placing an order with us.
Right.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we did during that time. We really miss our shop has kind of become a little bit of like a community hub over time, and like our friends that are artists or musicians, collaborators, they kind of before the pandemic would just like pop in the studio if they were in the neighborhood and dream up projects with us, and it was this very like natural thing that happened. And we realized that we were like so missing that interaction that we did end up starting a little series where we would send interview questions to other artists or individuals in town that we were really inspired by. And we did like a little mini social media interview series with them. And that was a really fun way to stay engaged as well, even though we couldn't actually see them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. I mean, and again, that's being able to connect with people, however you can do it, it makes a big difference for everybody. Do you feel like what do you feel like separates your shop from a typical screen printing shop? Is it the kind of dual, gig poster and t-shirt mentality? Is it more maybe the strength of the art side of things? What would you say, if you don't mind? You can take turns or share the
I
answer.
think there is a difference there, just from a really straightforward viewpoint, that we do offer both flat stock and apparel. But I would say our main differentiator is that we're such a collaborative shop, and that our process, we really view our shop as kind of being all of the jobs are collaborations with our clients. We take a lot of time in trying to educate everybody about what they could do to make their job better, and hopefully bring all of our expertise to the table every time a job comes. Like our overall goal is to make sure that we succeed in bringing our clients' ideas to life.
Yeah, I would add to that the other additional fact that I don't necessarily think this is untrue at other shops, but I find it really special that everybody on our team is an artist or creative themselves outside of work as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so everybody's bringing that mindset to the table anytime we're coming to a problem solving situation, or even just like when we're approaching other people's artwork, we are coming at it from the standpoint of being artists ourselves. So I think that really helps elevate a lot of our quality of the work, because we have that mindset as well.
Yeah. No, it makes a difference. And I guess my next thought was maybe asking May direct, but was you seem pretty organized. And I mean, I don't mean that as an accusation, but it's like I talk to people that are intensely creative, and very
Uh-huh.
often they struggle with that part. And I'm curious, and I did read a bit of your Printavo, description where you basically said you spent a significant amount of time writing down shop
Yeah.
manuals and stuff. And you wouldn't. I've probably said that to dozens of shops that they should do that, but the number of people that have actually done it, I think, are less than a handful of fingers that I can think of.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I'm just curious, and maybe that's a rhetorical question, but I'm just a little curious, like, is that a side of your personality that's always been there that you can just switch on,
I
or?
absolutely think so. I discovered as an adult that I learn best whenever I am reading information. So for me to properly organize things for the rest of the shop, it makes sense for me to write all of this out and have a guide that somebody could read and refer back to whenever they need to. So
Mhm.
yes, that is definitely part of my personality. You saying that is very generous, because I never feel like we're organized over here. The grass is always greener.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's always a work in progress.
Mhm.
But I think we are making like very big strides.
Yeah, I think so too. And our team is, as I mentioned before, they're all really great problem solvers. And we
Hmm.
like to make sure that everybody is feeling included in the process. That May is for sure the one that is like heading up all of that, like structural processes documenting, but
Hmm.
she's really good about making sure that everybody's opinion is included, and like if somebody else is the one that's the most immediately responsible for a task on the daily, they're going to be able to have a better set of like fresh eyes to figure out how to problem solve something that was maybe kind of a bottleneck previously. So it's definitely kind of back to our core values of being a very collaborative space.
Yeah. No, I that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, you would be amazed at what is deemed organized and what is not in screen printing. So, it's like, can you find the inks? Yes. It's like, I mean, so there's varying levels to everything. But yeah, no, I mean, you can kind of tell from just some of these online, kind of, I guess, what would you say, your perception or your display online to the world to some degree, if it, that can communicate some of it. But one question I typically ask people this is, and it kind of ties together with the other question, but which is partnerships, like working as a partnership, as with co-owners, that for people tends to be, I've said this in the past, like it tends to be kind of binary. People are like never, ever, ever, or always, and it's a must. So it's very binary there. And to some degree, the mentality of working with a partner, kind of, I've seen in the past in these interviews, it bleeds over into your attitude towards hiring to a degree. So I'm curious as far as answering one question and the other in regards to your attitude towards partnerships and or the whole hiring process, which can make or break a place. So maybe however you want to parse that out. What are your thoughts?
Sure. I mean, I like to view partnerships as just a more intimate way of collaborating. And since we're very pro collaboration, I am pro partnership. I think I could never achieve all of this on my own as a single person. So having Nick help, having Krista help, having the rest of our team offer the input that they have, it's always insightful. And I can't be on the floor all the time. I can't have my eyes on every single thing. And then just making sure that we have the correct people in the correct roles all the time has been a great help in growing our business.
And we've been going through a bit of hiring process recently. So that question is definitely top of mind. And our hiring process has changed a lot over the years.
We've learned a lot.
Yeah. And every new hire offers another opportunity to figure out how better to hire for your team. And we definitely have like big goals of what we want to accomplish as a studio and as a team, and making sure that we're asking the right questions of the right people to get them in the good positions that will really amplify their skill set. I think just every time we've gotten a little bit better at it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I could probably do a whole series of segments on hiring, because I think it's one of the questions that I would say the average screen printer of any, size enough to justify hiring struggles with. Like they struggle mightily with it, and it can, and with good reason, right? Because it can dramatically affect your business, and in ways that you can't even anticipate sometimes. And doing a fair bit of it myself, I look at it and I go, well, it's almost seasonal to some degree, the way you switch from one side to the other, but as needs balloon up, most of the people I talk to, they're always on the lookout, for somebody that's exceptional, right? Even if they're not going to hire them right away, they want to know about them and keep them in mind, right? And it's always like, I want to keep my radar on that person or this person. It's just because it's hard to find, right? It's hard to find people that are earnest, creative, and collaborative, right? Generally, you see people, maybe they're earnest and creative, but they want to do their own thing. They want to do their own thing their own way, and they're not really a team. They're not going to go join your local volleyball team. You know what I mean? They're like, I'm gonna make my own team. It's gonna be number one and number two, and that's it. So do you have any specific tips for other printers, stuff that you may have learned or hard lessons that could help them in hiring? Anything that pops into your heads?
For us, I think the most successful thing is having a written set of core values, and that something that your entire team knows and understands, and then being able to structure all of your interview questions around those values has been exceedingly helpful for us. Just knowing that we want somebody that has a creative background, that is like at heart some sort of artist, somebody that who is collaborative, that has like a growth mindset, and that strives for some sort of balance between like work and life. Like those are kind of our main checkpoints.
Yeah, I would also say, to May's credit, back to the organizational and like more written documents of processes, narrowing down exactly what you're hiring them for and making sure that, you know, like over time, our role, we've been able to really pinpoint exactly what that role does in a much more descriptive manner. And so if you're making sure that the position that you're hiring somebody for is really detailed and they know what to expect and the expectations that we have on them are very clear, I think all of that is helping us get closer and closer to making sure we're getting that interview process really, really smooth.
Yeah, that I think that's fantastic advice. Honestly, it's really and I mean maybe at the risk of going in the weeds a little bit, I would say, did you just know out of the gate what your core values were, or did that take a lot of time to actually create that and hone it and polish it?
Time to narrow down what we really felt was at the heart of our business. I think we all knew roughly where we wanted to go, but it's partially getting the wording right, getting what things we want to emphasize correct. But I feel like your core values, you just know them
Yeah,
at heart.
yeah, I would say that's true, but I and definitely agree with that. I think one of the difficulties is when you define a core value, you also define what isn't included in the core value. You know, I mean, and that might be one of the most valuable things about it is the fact that, well, our core value is collaboration. Therefore, people that are solopreneur mindsets or people that don't fit that core value are thereby kind of, you know, not a good fit, which is maybe one of the best results of it. And you would be surprised how many companies and organizations still struggle with defining that core value set, you know, and I think it's definitely worth doing. It's just I think it's a challenge for people, and part of it might just be they don't write that much, you know, or maybe they're not as, you know what I mean, as fluent in and kind of transitioning what they're feeling about their core values are into actually a written defined document. So I don't know, is that
Putting
how
it
did out of the
clearly.
gate? You said you did do some work on it though, right? I think you guys
I
had to spend
did.
some time on
I think really what freed me up to really think about those things and think about more of the business as a whole versus working within the business was hiring Krista and having somebody taking care of production, having Nick being more focused on the output and the quality of our goods. That left me to do more of this structural work. And if I had to keep doing all of that day to day, I wouldn't have time to sit
Sure.
down and figure out what core values were.
Yeah,
And I think I could easily see that being like a huge struggle for any shop.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it is. Yeah. So just before we run out of time here, I want to respect for your time and whatnot, but I do want to touch on the whole automatic thing because it's exciting, you know, and I saw some great pictures of your press online and maybe you can just touch on that and, you know, and honestly, like, why'd you choose M&R? You know, there's other options out there and what was your process and kind of going that route and where you ended up? What are your thoughts?
We moved into our current space in 2018, and we knew we needed to upgrade to an automatic. We knew we needed it even before then. We just didn't have the room for it.
Hmm.
I don't know that we had very much question of like who we were going to purchase from. Nick had worked almost entirely on M&Rs, had
Hmm.
nothing but good things to say about the company, the presses that he's worked on, and we were mostly just trying to, sit down and figure out what specific model of press would work better for
Hmm.
us. It was never a question of like, do we choose M&R?
Yeah, and I
Well,
feel
that's
like it's definitely like you can, in my mind, we've got like a before our auto time and after the auto, you know, like it has made a huge, huge change and everything, but from like the way the shop runs to the amount of projects we can take on and the amount of colors we can incorporate into a design. It's just changed everything for us in such a positive way that it's now opened up all of these other opportunities for us, which has been really exciting to see.
yeah, it's so fun for me to talk to people when they kind of finally get past that point. They're like, oh, I just don't know if I can do it. And then they finally get to the point, and I'm like, I want to tell you ahead of time what it's going to be like, you know, 3, 4, 5 months down the road. but it wouldn't work because you just wouldn't realize the whole scope of it. And in a nutshell, one of the biggest factors is you start to work on staging orders instead of just working on one order at a time, right? You're thinking in groups of orders or turning orders or flipping orders. You're thinking of actual like, you know, groups of, you know, your whole week at a time. From, oh my gosh, we finally got that order done. Oh, you know, what's the next one? Okay. You know, I mean, it's just it's such a, you know, higher gear, I guess, in some ways in your business, you know, and, you know, and now looking back, do you feel like, it was the right move at the right time? Do you feel like it was maybe running a little bit late for you guys pushing the envelope there, or was it the timing just perfect?
I really feel like we were. If I had a choice, I would have liked to commit to the auto a little earlier, but we were waiting for this particular space to get finished, to be done, being renovated. So we kind of didn't have much of a choice.
Sure.
We were, but all I can do is say that, you know, we're here now and
Yeah.
we got to keep looking towards the future.
For sure. I feel like we also are better suited now. I mean, we've had our auto for 2 years?
Yeah,
2 years now. So I do feel like we are better suited as a team now, and even at that time when we got the auto than we were pre-auto, in terms of making sure our team is able to handle the capacity that the press can handle, and
Right.
all of the efficiencies and everything that comes with that. So it maybe was a little bit late, but I do think that it has worked out for the best.
Was there one thing you could point to in your mind that you basically said, threw your spatula down or threw your squeegee down and said, okay, that's it, we're getting an auto? Or was it just you knew you were going to do it? And do you know what I mean? Was there like it was like a flipping point, or was it just literally like, it's just a slow pressure?
Moment. Nick, my business partner, had been doing all of the printing manually from when we started, and we reached a real bottleneck when he had like some health issues. Like it's been a pain point for him to like continue doing that, and like it's hard to see somebody that you work with go through all of that for the sake of the business and like wanting to help alleviate that to, you know, bring more opportunities to the shop. Like it was an easy choice to make. It's just kind of like, well, when do we throw down all of this money, you know, to get to that.
Yeah, for sure. And do you have tips for other printers that might be on the edge? You know, I've got a couple guys I can think of that I know personally that they've been putting it off. I mean, honestly, I mean, I know for a fact they have, but they just like they're hitting that point, and I'm just like, you're working to some degree. They're losing money because of their reluctance to spend money, if that makes sense, you know. But I don't want to, you know, I mean, obviously you know, you can't tell other people's unique situations, right? But, you know, there's a volume thing to it, right? Obviously, you know, you have to have a steady volume, but, you know, I would encourage people if they're on the edge of it, it's like reach out to your local sales manager or even your supplier, and they can usually give you a good case studies to look at, you know, or even talk to people like yourselves, you know, that have gone through it recently, and say, hey, talk to these people, and they can kind of counsel you a little bit, hold your hand, and say, because it's helpful. You know, what do you have any tips for printers that might want to get into, like, say, maybe they print a lot of t-shirts, but they've never printed flat stock? Do you have any like kind of unique tips on how to?
As far as unique tip goes, I don't know.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I would say to just experiment and play around. I think the like root and history of screen printing really does allow for a very kind of, for lack of a better word, like very DIY approach to it and mindset. And I think that not always, but the apparel printing, you get into it, you've got your system and your procedure, and you can kind of get into that very systemized mindset. which does produce the long-term growth of a business, right? But in flat stock, especially if you're just getting into it, I would encourage you to like open your mind and be as creative and playful as you can, so that you can like discover some new techniques.
That's a really good point. I kind of went into all of screen printing from that direction.
Yeah.
Like I started on the art side, so it is kind of hard to wrap my head around the other way of being somebody who prints mostly apparel and then going into flat stock. But the experimentation that I was able to achieve, like even learning how to screen print on paper, was a major bonus for me. I think we've easily brought a lot of that spirit into how we approach some apparel jobs as well. So
Sure. Well, yeah, and I think you know, a couple things that jumped into my mind was maybe start slow, do one color at a time, kind of thing, or you know, check yourself and check your equipment. You know, like, do you have what you need? You don't try to don't try to turn a Phillips head with a wrench or something. Like, make sure your equipment's right. You know what I mean? Because some people try to get in flat stock and they're, you know, slapping it on their press with spray tack and running it through the dryer with plastisol instead of water base, and they're doing different things. Not that you can't do those things, right? I mean, you can to get started, like you said, experiment. But if you're going to do any kind of volume and you want to make it an artist-friendly, sustainable, archival process, you know, you need to. It's easier if you start with the right tools, you know. You know, if that makes sense. But no, I think those are great points. Anything else you guys want to say to the M&R community? You know, how do people find you online? You know, maybe some parting tips, and then how do people find you?
Do you have any tips that you want to share, Krista?
Tips. I don't know that I have any like specific printing tips, but I would just say to always, I just think that like spending a lot of time investing in your staff and making sure that everybody's feeling seen and heard and appreciated goes a really long way. And within that, like making sure everybody on the team is, as May's mentioned with the core values, like headed in the same direction. And then keeping an open mind and like being willing to fail a couple times so that you can get better. I think that it's easy to want to resist against that, but that's how we're all going to get better. So
no, that's great.
Keeping it loose and being able to pivot when necessary.
Okay.
If I were to offer a tip to somebody who is just starting out, I would say maybe invest some time in reading some business books. I approached the whole thing without any sort of business background, and that was the biggest hurdle for me, was to have to backtrack and learn everything while I was doing the rest of the production work.
Do you have any books? Do you have any books in particular?
The first one that I started with was the E-Myth, which I know everybody mentions whenever they're talking about business books. We've recently been implementing EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, reading the book Traction by Gina Wickman. Those are two top books.
Awesome.
There's so many.
I hope I didn't interrupt you. I just wanted to know specific, but that's great.
I mean, E-Myth is a great.
Okay, well, thank you so much for you guys' time. Is there, well, you know what? I did have one last question, and feel free if you want to take a long time to answer it or not. Maybe it isn't long. How'd you come up with the name? I love the name.
We were struggling for a really long time, Nick and I, trying to come up with a name for our business, and we wanted to find something that was at the same time Tulsa-centric, but also screen print-centric. And we arrived at Flash Flood because flash floods happen often in Tulsa. And as you know, the two terms themselves can reference screen printing as well. So we loved that little pun. Print Studios is actually a nod to another studio that exists in Baltimore that we really loved, and just wanted to kind of carry that over in the Midwest.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. And what's the best way for people to reach out to you? Maybe they want to collaborate. Maybe they're artists that are watching our channel and they want to have some prints made. How do you prefer people to get in touch with you guys?
Usually by email, contact@flashfloodprint.com, sales@flashfloodprint.com. Our email or our website is the same, Flash Flood Print.
Okay.
That we're known as on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
Facebook too, I think.
Awesome. Well, hopefully I want to do a round two with you guys. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much for all your, thoughts and sharing with me and the, the M&R audience. And hopefully next time we can do without masks. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe even see you guys at a show. We'll see, right?
Oh, love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, thanks again. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Thomas.